Hi everyone, it's your boy Fresh, and I'm here to tell you why the Steiner MPS is replacing my Holosun 508T on this particular piggyback setup. I'd like to make one quick concession here, however. First of all, I'm actually a very big fan of Holosun's products. I, in fact, use them all the time in various forms. It is actually because of this that I would like to put a little bit more analysis into this segment of micro red dots, or what the market calls reflex red dots. As usual, let's run some of the numbers here. Holosun features a very large line of micro red dots. In the entry-level segment, we have the 407, one of the most common micro red dots used on pistols. You have your HS models, which are the standard feature and standard warranty, and you have your HE or Holosun Elite models, which have a slightly longer warranty and a couple of more upscale features and upgrades. The ending designator indicates the size and footprint of the red dot itself. The physical footprint of these mimics the Trigicon RMR, but the physical differences occur between the larger C models and the smaller K models. In addition to the physical size of the dot, one more differentiator between the C and K series is that on the C series, a photovoltaic cell is added both for some charging and passive use, as well as an input for auto brightness modes. Shown here are the physical footprint volume and the respective window area between the C and K series. Is there anything fancy in terms of the sight picture of the 407? No, not really. You just get a 2 MOA dot, which either comes in red or green. This being the entry point in this segment, what can you do by adding 60 to 70 more bucks? In this case, you can also opt for the 507 series. One of the most significant differences here that drove me to the 507, and in my case the 508 series, is the addition of a multi-reticle selection tool. In this case, you still have the option of a 2 MOA red or green dot, but you can also cycle between that, a 32 MOA crosshair ring, and a combination of the two, which gives you a circle dot reticle somewhat similar to the EOTech 552 and EXPS series. I found this extremely clever and very flexible of a setup. For very close range scenarios, a 2 MOA red dot was more than sufficient. For a little bit of bracketing and high-speed work, the circle dot demonstrated the similar speed to the EOTech, despite the greatly reduced window size of these micro red dots. And if for whatever reason you need to conserve your battery, you could switch the 2 MOA dots to ease your range anxiety. At the time, I had a little extra cash and decided to go for the 508T, which featured a slightly flatter top and a titanium body, which I perceived to be a bit tougher despite the weight going up by about half an ounce. The 407, 507, and 508 are what we call open emitter micro red dots. An open emitter is very simple. It's a typical red dot that just has an emitter that's exposed to the element. That language might be a little bit biased, but that explains most of its disadvantages. In order to address some of this, you will have a popular option known as the 509T. This closed emitter option is not that much heavier than the C series of the 407 and 507, takes up a volume in between your C and K series, and yet still maintains a decent window area. We'll compare this one to Steiner MPS in a moment, but this one seems like it would have been a great contender to put on top of my Vortex 5X. Probably what was attractive about these first 4 series that I showed here was the ample number of daytime settings and a little bit of nighttime settings needed for night vision. For those who believe that there are too many settings, however, you have the SCS MP2 and SCS MOS. 2 different footprint micros which feature a auto brightness setting for the daytime and no nighttime settings. You also have 2 more pistol exclusive closed emitter options known as the EPS Carry and EPS Carry 6, both of which have very similar specs. You could say that Holosun is absolutely killing it with the coverage of this product line. Let's take a look at how some Scandinavian designed hardware works. Aimpoint offers the Acro P1 and P2. The P1 has about 15,000 hours of battery life, and the P2 keeps up with the competition at about 50,000. The P2 has a slightly volumetric footprint versus the P1, and both the P2 and P1 have fewer daytime settings, but a more flexible nighttime setting schedule. Both these models are going to be on the high end, typically charge between $100 to $200 more than the high-end Holosuns. Let's take a quick look at Vortex, for whom this 5X optics footprint was designed for. The Venom and Viper and Razor have a very compact footprint and a large selection of daytime adjustments. Like the Holosun SCS, however, they don't have any nighttime adjustments. The window sizes are a little bit larger than the Acro P1 and P2, and are not too far away from the EPS, SCS, and K series from Holosun. However, they are slightly lacking in terms of battery life, with the Venom having only 3000. If I were to go for any daytime and nighttime mixed applications, I wouldn't use these as my first choice. For sporting and competition, however, I think these things fit the bill in terms of size and weight constraints. If we take a look at Trijicon, they have the most copied optics in this segment. The Holosun 407, 507, and 508T are essentially copies of the RMR. Where Trijicon had gaps in their pricing below their current product line or between their RMRs, Holosun decided to come in and swoop in and try to take a little bit of market share. The current RMR Type 2 adjustable has 6 daytime settings and 2 nighttime settings. Although the battery life advertised is not that great, but might be a little bit more accurate than Holosun's depending on different conditions. The Type 2 auto-adjusting LED model does not have any specific nighttime settings, but I'm curious with some testing if the brightness or LED switches or gets down to a level where it doesn't bloom under night vision. The RMR Dual uses a combination of an LED and fiber optic. Your auto brightness LED covers the daytime with the option of a redundant fiber optic, while your nighttime is covered by a tritium illumination for night vision. This illumination option is fascinating, and I'd like to see this more out of newer ACOG models, where they could use an LED, a fiber optic, and additional tritium illumination. The window size, not surprisingly, is fairly comparable to the C series of Holosun. If you want a significantly larger field of view, however, you can also go with the SRO. You could probably call it a Type 2 adjustable with the largest window of this class here, which is almost a full 1 inch squared. Battery life is slightly improved in front of the others. Leupold, with its best known proprietary footprint, comes out with the Delta Point Pro. It has plenty of daytime settings, but is one of the heaviest of the bunch, and despite having many nighttime settings, doesn't have any for night vision. Its physical volume is large, but it allows you to have a fairly large viewing window. Despite all this, however, it has the worst battery life in its class, only 1000. It's the optic of many compromises, you can say. EOTech recently came out with the eFlex in SHOT Show 2023. It comes in at 1.4 ounces, has plenty of daytime settings, and 1 nighttime setting for night vision. Its physical volume is pretty small, but happens to have a very large viewing window that supposedly mimics the aspect ratio of their holographic sights. Though not as good as Holosun's, it has a competitive battery life. So once again, I've performed this superfluous comparison to get to our Steiner MPS. Okay, upon first glance, am I just tricking you again with another suboptimal optic? It seems rugged, being a closed emitter, is one of the heaviest optics of this bunch. It doesn't have the best number of nighttime settings, although it does have a little bit of NV available. It's got a fairly large volumetric footprint, which is not perfect for pistols, and the battery life is not all that great. So what's the big deal with this guy? I think I could keep this kind of functional here for a sec. This guy uses an acro footprint, which is an easy on and off dovetail, has a supremely durable construction, and very easy access to the CR1632 battery up top. There isn't a terrible number of daytime settings, but this simplifies things a lot. Think about it this way, there are 6 positions to your adjustable stock. You are bound to find one that works for you no matter how tall or short you are. I think the same thing applies to your eyes in terms of light transmission. Speaking of light transmission and sight picture, let's take a look at that dot. I have pretty significant astigmatism, and I can see this dot very clearly. When I compare this to my Holosun 508, the dot is more in round, appears brighter, and is quite a bit more crisp on the edge. This was a first for me because I thought I would never be able to look at a crisp red dot without corrective lenses. I'm not saying that this is an exclusive feature, but it gave me a very good impression. This doesn't have an adjustable reticle like the Holosun, but it doesn't really need it either. I just want a simple, crisp, clear red dot. Also, the engagement distance between a smeared red dot and a blurry red dot, for somebody with astigmatism like myself, is an effective range of over 200 yard sweep. With an aggravated astigmatism, I could barely get good groups at 100 yards. But with a crisp red dot, I can easily make compensated shots at 300 yards with this. The night vision settings are fairly decent too. When you take a look at the Holosun, most of the night vision settings have quite a bit of bloom to them. The MPS has significantly less bloom in both of its two settings. And we can take a look at the viewing window here again really quick. Despite being $200 cheaper, it has a much larger viewing window. Its battery life is not terribly far away from the Acro P1. There's plenty of functional and visual details here that I appreciate. It's got a fairly unique geometric or polygonal look, has plenty of protection on the front lens, easy access to the 1632 battery as mentioned before, and fairly intuitive touch on the brightness settings on the side. This might appear to be a bit of a goofy look for some. I have to admit, however, that on top of this 5X, this thing is absolutely growing on me. It really does look like a tough, battle-proven sight. Despite all the comments of the supposed functional guys out there, they absolutely know that aesthetics is everything. I'll have to make one more mention of the sight itself. Sometimes these appear at a street price that is sometimes cheaper than the 508T. Well, it's a reasonably priced, closed emitter, night vision capable, decently optioned micro red dot sight with a clear dot and great quality glass. It's got a unique look and also appears that it can take quite a few hits of its own. It takes the best aspects of the 508T and 509T and combines them with the Aimpoint Acro P2 at what still manages to be a better price. Despite the less than competitive battery life, I know this thing will be daylight bright, and on a rigorous battery changing schedule, the battery is extremely easy to access. All in all, despite this being another well-balanced optic and nothing in the extremes, I do not regret this choice, and I think this thing looks absolutely sharp on both a pistol and a carbine. For more long-form video reviews like this, don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching. I will see you on the range.